What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson. And as we've been talking about lately, the MCU is getting very exciting, and the future is very bright. But I believe that the MCU is about to change in a very big way. And in a way, it's going to have its very own reset. Now, I'm not talking about them resetting everything that's already happened in the MCU, as in get rid of Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, get rid of all of those stories. That's not going to happen. In fact, many of you have asked me if I think that that ever will happen, and I don't think so. If it ever did, it would have to be years and years down the line, and they would have to take a break before resetting it. And I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's necessary. However, I believe after Phase 6, the MCU will do its own type of reset where they keep everything that's happened, but basically start new. At least have a new focus, and that focus is going to center around the X-Men. We'll deep dive into it, but before we get started, big thank you to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. This one's actually really cool and very personal to me because I've actually used Established Titles before. My family is from Scotland and they do a lot of great work for the environment. With Established Titles, you can officially become a lord or a lady. And when I say that, I literally mean it. You can change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit cards or plane tickets. And you get an official certificate. Here's mine. In Scotland, if you own a piece of land, you are referred to as Lord or Lady. Through Established Titles, you get 1 square foot of land in Scotland, which officially makes you a Lord or a Lady. And you get a certificate with your unique plot number where you can see the exact location of your land. And the best part is they actually plant a tree with every order. This makes a perfect last minute gift for somebody, a loved one or a friend. And Established Titles is actually running a big Labor Day sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Cosmic Wonder, you get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/Cosmic Wonder to get your gifts now and help support the channel. And Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a Lord or a Lady, we can build our own little Cosmic Wonder kingdom. Now, Disney's D23 Expo is coming up in about a week now, and of course we're all super hyped for it because there's the possibility that they could be revealing some projects that revolve around the mutants. And while I definitely think that they need to introduce at least some mutants before Secret Wars, I think the mutants are really going to be coming after Secret Wars. In fact, I think the entire next saga, Phase 7, Phase 8, Phase 9, is going to be the Mutants Saga. I called that in a previous video, but I'm calling it again right now. And if Marvel is going to do what I think they're about to do, the Avengers kind of won't be prominent figures in the MCU anymore, but it's really going to be all about the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Now, the Infinity Saga was awesome. It was the best. It was fantastic. And the Multiversal Saga is going pretty well. Some people have some issues with it, but we've gotten a lot of great projects from it. And of course, we still have Phase 5 and Phase 6 to play out before this saga is over. But before this saga ends, I think it's going to set up the groundwork for the next phase, obviously. And I think that they're going to do that with the X-Men, because they're going to build the X-Men team. And I'm assuming that they're going to do that much like they did the Avengers team. And this is where it kind of resets, because I think Marvel and Kevin Feige actually wants to build the X-Men much like they did the Avengers team in the beginning. And what I mean by that is have individual solo movies that kind of connect with other movies until they eventually all have to come together to fight some big great cause. And when I think about this, I think it makes the most sense, and I actually think it could be one of the most exciting ways to do it, especially since we know that Kevin Feige doesn't like to do things the way things have been done before. A perfect example of this is Spider-Man. When Captain America Civil War introduced Spider-Man, we did not get really a traditional origin story. They didn't dive into it too much, but we didn't get the Uncle Ben story. We thought we were going to get it in Spider-Man Homecoming, but we still didn't. And honestly, we never really got anything about Uncle Ben in the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy, except for the briefcase that had his initials on it. But basically, Aunt May was our Uncle Ben of the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy. That is a perfect example of Kevin Feige kind of wanting to do things a little bit differently. And I think that will remain true for the X-Men, especially since Kevin Feige himself worked on the X-Men films, the original ones at least. Now, the X-Men have kind of been done in 2 different ways so far. The first way that was done in the first X-Men movie that we got was that the X-Men team was already established. Then we went to the newer X-Men movies where we got the backstory of Magneto Magneto and Professor Xavier. We watch them come together, and then we watch them form the X-Men team. Then, of course, we watch Magneto break away with half of the mutants. Now, since Kevin Feige is most likely going to want to do things a little bit differently, I think that it's going to be a combination of the two, and I think this is how Phase 7 is going to start off. I think that in the end of Phase 6 and in Secret Wars, we'll get a big setup for the X-Men. So the team will kind of be established, but then in Phase 7, we'll start with our individual movies. I think there will be a relatively small X-Men team established in the MCU. I think most of the X-Men that we might get in Secret Wars could be variants, could be from other universes, possibly the Fox universe. A recent rumor going around is that when Deadpool enters the MCU, he is going to bring some of the Fox X-Men with him, and they will have somewhat of a role to play in Secret Wars. That would establish the X-Men team. That would show us, hey, the X-Men do exist, and it would tell the people in our universe, hey, they probably exist somewhere here as well. So Phase 7 could start with individual films, like a Cyclops film, like a Rogue film. They could possibly do a Wolverine solo film, however, I think they might stay away from that for a little bit. But I think during this time, we're going to see Professor X recruit X-Men. I think Professor X is going to have already established somewhat of an X-Men team over at the X-Men Mansion, and at the start of Phase 7, we'll start to see the recruitment process. And the way Marvel Studios has set this up is actually quite clever. What they did in Ms. Marvel sets up the individual films in the future. They essentially established that some people have the X gene. However, they need something to awaken it. This was the bangle for Kamala Khan. It also seems like they're kind of retconning the Scarlet Witch to actually be a mutant. Although she is a powerful witch, she could also have the mutant gene that was activated by the Infinity Stone. So some of the X-Men could already exist and their mutant powers already be activated, but we could also see new mutants' powers get activated, and these could be our solo films until eventually they come together for a big X-Men film, much like the Avengers came together for the first Avengers film. Now from here on out, it's going to get pretty cool because they're not just going to completely get rid of all of the other characters that existed before Phase 7. So we'll still have the Scarlet Witch there, some of the Avengers are still going to be there, hopefully Spider-Man is still going to be there, but the Fantastic Four are also going to be coming into the picture as well, so they're going to be blended in with the X-Men too. And I believe that these two groups are sort of going to be the main focus of the MCU moving forward, starting with Phase 7, until eventually we have a huge movie like Avengers Infinity War that brings not only the X-Men and the Fantastic Four together, but of course also the Avengers together and the new Guardians team as well. Basically, this is how I think it's going to go down. Phase 7 starts off with some individual mutant projects. Then we're going to get another Fantastic Four film that could be in Phase 8, depending on what their timeline is. Also during Phase 7, we will get our other little projects as well that'll kind of show us the side stories of some new Avengers, possibly the Young Avengers, and some of the new characters that are being introduced. Then I think we'll be getting our first official X-Men film. After that, they'll continue to do individual X-Men movies, but we'll start to see the actual X-Men group interact with people like Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four, and also, of course, the Avengers. Now, these will be brief interactions, and we may see some movies and some projects where we see a couple members of different teams interact with each other, but not the full-on teams interacting and fighting with each other to try to save Earth or the universe as a whole. Basically, it has to build. You can't just throw everyone together all at once, then there's no climax. There's nothing exciting left to see. So that's why I think Marvel Studios has to start off with these individual mutant projects, build them up into the first X-Men team, then continue recruiting and introducing new X-Men members, all the while having them interact with some members of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four until eventually, I think all of them are going to have to come together to fight Galactus. If we're talking about big bads, the one that's on the table that's probably not going to be used in the multiversal saga is Galactus. And what better villain to bring together the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers? So I really think that after Phase 6, Phase 7 is going to kick off another amazing saga, which again, I believe is going to be the Mutant Saga, that will focus on the mutants and the Fantastic Four, but of course have the Avengers there as well. And to end this saga, we'll see all of the teams come together. And honestly, if this happens even remotely close to how I think it's going to happen, it'll probably be the best saga. Marvel had to focus on the Avengers for years and years and years because they didn't have the rights to the X-Men or the Fantastic Four, but now that they do, they can kind of switch the focus and give the Avengers a little bit of a break. So the shift of the main focus of the MCU would go from the Avengers to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and I think that this is going to make a heck of a saga, but let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay up to date on all things relating to the MCU. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.